appreciate the time. Many of you know, since somehow you've gotten to this event. I'm Joey Connect, one of the senior leaders with Proteus Engage. I've been with our enterprise more than 20 years. Lots of exciting things going on in our world. We have a purpose-built solution that helps clients with B2B complex sales, handoffs, onboarding, and cross-selling those same clients. And of course, this internal champ kind of comes into place in two distinct places. They're really three, and depending if they're involved in a handoff and onboarding, it could be all four. So a lot of fun on today's conversation because your champ is really your partner for navigating obviously complex deal environments, which we deal with a ton ourselves. And like I said, our solution is purpose built. Wasn't by accident. We basically learned this from our client saying, Joe, it would be great if we had a solution that could do this, this, and this, and really help us out and be seamless with our CRM and making it fast for the team and all sorts of things that we'll cover. Because nowadays, modern B2B sales, the internal champ is the most important person in the early phases, and then them helping you align with the other stakeholders, SMEs, to really get it over the line, whether that's a SaaS deployment and or a project itself. So there's really, this spans all types of kind of sales experiences. I will put one caveat to that. Most of our clients and a lot of the concepts, most importantly, I'll be talking about today, are for a little bit more complex sales, not $5, $50 sign up right now widget kind of solutions, because those are air quote relatively simple. Where we come into play is when I'll walk through right now, kind of where the complexity and really the challenge and the need for an internal champ and how to handle them really comes into play. All right, so let's get this thing going. Okay, so again, being very transparent, some of you on this webinar today, you're just getting into complex B2B sales or even this whole environment. Some of you are OGs, like myself. I just turned 48 on Friday, right? So couple of things just contextually to make sure everybody's talking apples to apples. So a lot of times the complexity in B2B sales kind of focuses around those 6 bullet points. Of course, there's more, but again, we're trying to cover some ground here today. But a lot of these are really where that complexity is the root of the challenge slash the opportunity, where you got a crap ton of people. It's usually more of a complex offering. And probably the biggest, most important one, people hear it all the time, but I don't think they really rationalize how that affects the sales process and the opportunity is about 80% of the sale, in some cases even more, is done with nobody from your team in the room. So just process that for a little bit, right? So even though all the phone calls, all the conversations, all of these things, all the meetings, so much of the decision making or where your ghosting is going to come from is poorly equipping that obviously leader and not giving him or her the right information as the internal champ to help navigate the hellish world of their own company, right? And we're going to cover that quite a bit. So this is where if you're a sales leader, a sales, you're a player coach, you do both, or you're just in sales here, or you're a CS or onboarding person trying to help figure out some of these challenges. What happens is ghosting is a function of not equipping the right people for success, because really in sales you're looking for no's also, right? You don't want to waste time. Time is the worst thing a sales rep can waste because there's not much of it, and so they need to be making opportunities. So we're going to unpack that more. So what you see in a modern sales environment, if you look below kind of that spaghetti world, right, is there's a lot of people. And if anybody on this call is in industries like we do a lot in healthcare and financial services and other places, these numbers are grossly off. You got anywhere from 10 to 15 people on your team and anywhere from literally 20 to 50 people on the right hand side. And this could be as long as 2 years or more to get that deal across the line. So there's just an overwhelming amount of complexity. And then the internal champ, him or her, is kind of your quarterback, of course, helping to navigate the purchasing process qualification process, ROI process, right? All of these things. So a lot of the focus here today will be the simple things you can do right now that can equip them for more of those 80% of the conversations when you're not around. You might feel great after you would do a demo and you're like, nailed that crap, get back to your jump meeting. Everybody's like, boom, great freaking call. They love us. And then they never talk to you again. So what happened, right? So there's a lot of factors to that. It's no silver bullet, but I'm going to share some of the things we've seen. Again, in some of the respects, hitting a no is all right too, so that all of that energy can be moved on to the next stages, right? So again, part of backtracking here a little bit is just what is really the complexity of B2B sales, and this is kind of with regulation, matrix-based organizations, silos. We talked about silos in our last webinar. Check that one out on our website too if you like this, or you're really breaking down some of your own internal silos, getting everybody organized. Same thing on the client side. So just a couple of things to think about as you're stepping into this role or executing this role, or probably some of you right now are frustrated as all get out because of this, right? So let's then drill in. So why are internal champions, excuse me, so important to the process in general? And quite frankly, they're they're you have to do a very good job of identifying them. Um, so sometimes as a sales rep, you'll get hooked into the looky-loo who's really, really positive and really loves what you're doing, but they don't have the moxie per se to navigate a purchase through the organization. And primarily that's because they're not fully aware of the strategic opportunity and what are the greatest bleeding points and problems going, right? So as a sales rep, I think all of us know what we're hunting is problem/opportunities, right? So it's either a positive growth opportunity, we need to do this, this, and this. If you're selling project software, professional services, whatever the hell it is, it's to solve a problem or a need, right? But ultimately, it has to be a solid one that's of high priority and hopefully needs to be executed within the upcoming 24-month period. Clearly, everybody's hoping for this quarter, obviously for budgeting purposes, but everybody knows what I'm getting at right here, right? So identifying that internal champ is a very important process too, right? So not getting tricked into just the person that wants to get on the phone 10 times next week, but that deal is going to go nowhere. And so there's tricks of that I'm going to share with here on the next slide about how do you equip those internal champs with success, and you're holding them accountable, but in a good way, because again, it's a 50-50 relationship here. It's mutual. We need to figure out is, are we going to dance or what, in a very good way? And that dancing is, again, only going to happen if they have a problem. So at the top here, you can see I've mentioned some of these terms already, but clearly they're the deal quarterback, especially in complex organizations, right? Larger organizations. They're hearing everything. They know what's going on, hopefully, right? They can help with influencing decisions. Now, one of the things I'm going to talk about a little bit more too, but as you kind of go through, the advocacy, challenges, all these things, let's just speak, as many of you know how I do these, like the brass tacks here is that person has to go into battle internally to push your professional services, whatever the hell you're selling. I don't care if it's copier toner. Like you have to be able to justify, and the death of most deals is them framing your solution in the wrong way internally. And Bob, Tiffany, or Tommy in a team meeting is going to be like, we already have a solution for that. Or they aren't able to articulate the differentiation between X and Y, right? Or D, E, and F, right? And so that's where the ghosting happens, is right out the gate. The poor internal champ has no chance of getting you guys that second meeting and growth opportunity. And you'll see in complex B2B sales, this is one of the big challenges, is getting some of those problems very, very early in the process, so that as the internal champ is navigating the organization for you, they're getting ears perking up. You want that timing to be right, where if you walk into your kitchen and there's water on the floor, it would be really nice if there was a plumbing truck in your driveway already, right? And you'd probably go with them, right? So you feel good about the timing and the solution. So put that in the back of your head. This is where ghosting come from. This is where you don't even get that second meeting. This gets worse, obviously, going deeper into the ecosystem, which we'll cover here in a second. So the left-hand side is during the sale. And then the right-hand side here is also that champion carries you through obviously some other phases a lot of the times, whether that's handoff, cross-selling, onboarding itself. They're somehow involved, and this is going to be the person, especially if you're selling into organizations north of 10 million in revenue, where the companies start to have a pretty sizable headcount, typically north of 60, 80 employees. 60, 80, 100 employees typically means divisions, VPs, ownerships, right? Like just own where you're selling and you'll start to figure it out. North of 100 mil, it's going to get even more complex. Then you might just be hunting a division or a subgroup. So again, everybody is on this call from different groups, but apply these things here, right? So this is why they're so important. It's not just about getting demos, because what happens is you won't get the demos and then you're wondering why you got ghosted. All right. So it's not just somebody to build a relationship with and kick it to the curb. Also, as many of you know, establishing a strong relationship. The deal might not even be able to happen for 2 years because they're currently under contract from DEF vendor, right? So this is a whole nother presentation. We go into kind of nurturing what we call fat funnel, which is just basically a crap ton of people that really like your solution, but contract wise, you can't even buy them out. So they're not going to purchase in the next rolling 18 months. But they could after that. So that's a whole different cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs that I'll go through in another presentation. But again, related to today's topic, working with your internal champ, these are critical things to be thinking about during that, and why they're so you really are in partnership. It's a mutual opportunity to really get this over the line. All right. So identifying that internal champ, and then of course we're going to get into now, what do you provide them? What is the toolbox? How do we equip them for success? Because at the end of the day, their performance is very much your responsibility, ironically. Think of it as if you're on the frontline sales now and you're selling and you have a VP that is coaching you, you have to kind of think of it as that you're coaching the internal champ. Okay. So some common pitfalls here, which then drive obviously solutions and things to think about within your own enterprise, is get freaking organized. Like so many groups we talk with, it's all buried in emails. There's no consistency, and quite frankly, people want things that are personal to them. So a lot of the times, if you're selling into, I'm making these up, but say you're selling into hospitals and biotech, the approach is probably a little bit different. What you're saying to them is probably a little bit different. Maybe what ROI you're showing them is a little bit different. You need people to be able to do mirroring, right? When they look at how you're presenting yourself, it mirrors to an environment they know. It's very hard to talk about selling cars when you're really trying to sell them a printer. Does that make sense? It has to be in a parallel world of theirs, and you got to help the internal champ with that. Inconsistent, all these things that I have listed out here. These are kind of the main things that we see, because what happens is you have that great first meeting, but then that internal champ is off to fight the fight for you and get those additional meetings booked and carrying those over the line to get you that next meeting, that next, oh, yeah, I'm now bringing in my VP or another SME or other folks, where you better be already in the very early stages identifying the problems and the ROI. I know on the earlier slide, I just said 80% of the sale is done without you. In most deals now, 80% of the final three was done without even talking to you. So let me say that again. So they already are figuring out the top three products they want to talk to by never talking to you guys. There's enough information out there on the interweb. It's a joke, obviously, of about you and da 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 da. So that's not even what we're talking about here. Then your sales team, direct sales, gets involved. Now 80% of that direct sale is going to be done without the rep involved, right? So you got to kind of think the customers, not think, we know, we look at this every single day. They're 17 times more educated coming in to that first meeting and second meeting than they ever were before. And so you have to hit the ground running very, very quickly of identifying the problem, identifying the opportunity, and bringing that information into an environment that others that you have not talked to can understand the value point, the ROI, and the opportunity in order to recruit them to that next meeting. Does that make sense? So we talk about everybody has a sales process. That's great. Those are steps inside your Salesforce or your HubSpot. Great, good job. That's I'm not being mean, but like, of course you should. Like, duh, right? So good job. That's like team goals for the week. Like, I'm gonna wake up. Like, of course you are, right? Like, we hope so, right? Like, so don't count those kinds of things. When we talk about really executing a process, I talk extensively, and you've probably seen on our side about mutual plans and guiding customer experiences and helping them navigate via them the internal champ, the actual purchasing process by using mutual plans and other tools to create that open communication and collaboration to identify that value, communicate that value, and get that value to the right stakeholders on the opportunity. Okay, excuse me. So that's the backdrop and a heavy amount of the challenges and pitfalls come out of this. So you might say to yourself, okay, Joe, so what do we do? How do I take we can internally with them? So I'm going to share quite a few of the concepts here because these concepts are kind of the core pillars that are needed. And of course, all of this in our case is done inside Engage in a secure collaboration environment to navigate these sales processes through with clear communication, accountability processes, everything. But the purpose really of all this is to equip and provide the internal champ with the information him or her needs to fight the fight when you're not around. And that's very, very critical. As you know, if you're selling SaaS, a lot of times your killer is going to be InfoSec or security. If you're selling certain products, healthcare, there's going to be compliance, but also operations, all sorts of people who come to this deal with their own persona, their own perceptions around the product, right? And they actually have their own problems, which might not be the original problems that you identified, right? Because you might have heard primarily the internal champ or somebody in the internal champ's very close sphere, their problems, but you're kind of going in dark a little bit on the additional problems that might help add more value to your offering and move the deal faster, right? So to do that, to unearth these elements, you need to be able to have candid conversations, processes around that, like a mutual plan or an execution of engagement and setting expectations, which is mutual with you and the internal champ to help him or her navigate the the abyss that they're going into. How do you figure this out? Simply ask them. I'm amazed how many people don't ask, like, what's the purchasing process? How would this come through in your organization? Who else is affected? Do you think if we talked to two other folks, we would be able to build a strong ROI matrix around this to really help you guys move from neutral to drive, right? A lot of times these are just simple questions, and you have to understand that maybe they're not that wowed with what you've showed today because they're still processing it, and their biggest concern is how would we adopt this, right? Like, how would we actually get this to work in an organization, whether that's a product, a project, right? Services, anything, hardware. I mean, we deal with all types of sales processes and things, multi-locations. I mean, the list goes on and on. The theme, though, if I have to share anything, whether you work with us or not, is you have to create an ecosystem where everything is on demand, centralized, and you can share the information in a way that the internal champ can leverage tools to help answer internal questions he or her is having and helping progress through a repeatable, scalable communication plan. Call them mutual plans, right? I mean, a lot of people do. They can be whatever you want, but ultimately navigating that through to set the right expectations so that you're going to get the right feedback during this entire process. All right. So I'll quickly, you guys have probably read it as I've been talking, but centralize clearly. Get out of email. Email is not a sales process. Email is email, especially if you're an enterprise or doing something complex. Task system, or what we call checklists and workflow systems that we do a ton. Data collection. And you might be asking, why is this so much data and stuff? Well, if you're really building strong ROI models, the customer at some point needs to be communicating information to you and sharing information with you about current performance metrics, what they're doing. So it becomes very clear in order to then mirror, like I've talked about, you got to get enough intel on them So they need to provide you resources. And a lot of time in those resources, there's a lot of golden nuggets for additional opportunities, right? And that, again, also shows a level of commitment from the lead or the prospect, right? If they're not willing to communicate with you certain things, this deal is going nowhere, and get off the high hope wagon because it's just not going to happen, right? The hope and pray model is not professional selling. And so by being able to lay out a crystal clear roadmap, and that roadmap might just be getting to the strong ROI. It's not even selling the solution, getting a commitment from the internal champ to help you get there and or get the right people to get there. That alone is the first phase of obviously very successful complex sales ecosystems. All right. So with that said, I'm going to show you just so again, clearly I love our solution and we're very, very successful as an organization. But a lot of the times, I just want to share with people because sometimes simple ideas can really help a team move the needle, especially if you're a startup. We work with tons of startups, we work with enterprises, we really work with all sizes. Um, but ultimately, a lot of times you're just a couple degree bubbles on the compass, excuse me, off from success. And so I like to share some things because a lot of times this can kind of filter some ideas. So we obviously our company Engage. This is what we help our clients do: map out obviously sales, handoff experiences, and of course onboarding. But a lot of times the structure looks something like this: like there's discovery, meet our people. Here's all the demos and meetings. Here's our resources, infosec and integrations. Again, persona based targeting. So all the geeks who know security and all stuff can be in here, and they're looking at all of the information that is very targeted to them, right? And this information, like this is ours, obviously. This helps anybody that we're engaging with, like, hey, look, we work with all these unbelievable companies. We're high security. Starts to clear a lot of the boxes. This is great for your internal champ. Again, think of it for your internal champ. How do you have a toolbox to win? In many of our clients, this is broken out even more, depending on operations or finance or whatever it might be. So you can control who to show and share what, which again is equipping your internal champ for success. The internal champ, of course, can share this with new people within their company so that they can get in. They can also comment on anything and ask questions, which is fully integrated with Slack and Teams. This is not a demo. The point is providing actionable, real easy, templatable, secure experiences to drive those processes forward, again, from a targeted persona. Another very important piece I will showcase here is basically file sharing. Like I mentioned here, a ton of data collection goes on and collaboration on those documents. And then, of course, we have a very robust, what we call mutual plan checklist system. This is used to power everything that we're talking about, of that guided experience, collecting the data, pulling that client through this complex. So as more people join, when it goes from the internal champ and him or her invites 20 other people, they're all there, right? And so they're able to get caught up during the sales process for meetings they missed. Everybody on this call has Netflix because you want to watch stuff on demand. It's the same thing in sales, right? And so all of this is centralized. So on this left-hand side is your team and the client's team, and then you're walking them through all these different elements to drive that communication and collaboration overall. So mutual plans are a very big piece. Excuse me, really coughing up here, of driving that execution. And again, centralized environment, everything easily accessible, synced with your CRMs, all this kind of stuff. So making it easy to do this. And of course, then your internal champ is pulling this up in him or her meetings and driving that forward and sharing this information and really taking it to the next level overall. So I just wanted to share. This is, again, not a demo. This is what we do. We do it very, very successfully. It's all templated, fast for your teams, highly personalized to your clients, all of that done in a centralized environment, really moving the needle when you need to move the needle, obviously with your internal champs. I'll close out here with kind of what I always do, the concept of internal champs. Would love to probably talk with any of you. Again, we have extensive experience in this if you're just looking for ideas or concepts. That's my email there, my private email. You can sign up there. I'll also send a follow-up, basically my personal calendar, so that you can just book directly on my personal calendar. And many, many people have taken advantage of this to just brainstorm ideas specifically about internal champs and how we kind of some of our secret sauce of how we organize things, the timing. We have a ton of automations and follow-ups, all sorts of things that happen to really drive that engagement. But again, really making sure your internal champ is equipped for success, and any of the metrics that are going on, of course, push back into Salesforce and HubSpot automatically for you and other solutions. So we look forward to unpacking that more. Hopefully, some really good nuggets of knowledge I shared here. Look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Don't hesitate. Check out our cool webinar, more webinar. We have a NetSuite webinar going out, all sorts of webinars going out, and our webinar library has a lot of these concepts in there too. So again, appreciate the time. Look forward to talking with you guys soon. Thanks and have a great day.